Quick disclaimer, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing here should be considered financial advice. Always do your own research and understand the risks before investing.
Welcome back everyone to a Ethereum update. So we haven't done a Ethereum update in a little bit, so I just kind of wanted to get this done while we were kind of still trading, just because we already did our Bitcoin update, daily update as well for that. If you haven't seen that, make sure to check that out. Pretty much everything follows Bitcoin, so we kind of like to base everything off of that. So for the analysis part really quickly, main time frame in which we have been looking for Ethereum is basically we are within this sideways range for the last couple of weeks, really almost a month and a half so far. And our two scenarios that we basically have right now is our white scenario or our orange scenario. So in our white scenario, we have our larger A, B, C for an A wave, and then a B wave down and a C wave up for a larger B wave relief bounce and an A, B, C. It's totally possible too that this B wave could already be the top here, just because overall this would technically be a 1, 2, 3 wave corrective bounce where we can get a rejection and head lower as well. In our orange scenario, this is just all a very wide fourth wave corrective move where we can get a rejection and head for one more low before we do get a B, C corrective move, similar to what is this white pattern right now. It's just basically, do we get one more low or have we already bottomed and now we're just working on that super choppy rally that we were looking for. Now, either scenario kind of works out very well. Fourth waves, they can be very lengthy. They can be up and down, they can be sideways, and they can be choppy, similar to what we have experienced over this last month. So when we see this really choppy range movement, I mean, it pretty much calls similar to what a fourth wave could do. Technically, this fourth wave is valid all the way up to this A wave up here. But as of right now, we'll just kind of keep it down here just because we haven't broke above this swing high. I added these trend lines as well, very similar to what we were doing the last time we were going sideways. And Bitcoin was getting trapped around this swing. I want to say it was around this area just because of these two lengths. And it was also forming higher lows every time as well. So very similar to this. And you can kind of see, if we can align this up, similar to this. Basically very similar to what Bitcoin was just doing over in November. Chop, 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 chop. But as we're chopping, we're trending upwards. We're heading higher, we're getting higher lows, and we're basically moving upwards in a very choppy movement, very similar to what we could be doing here. And for our Bitcoin videos, if you didn't watch, we were basically looking at this as a fourth wave corrective bounce, which in this fourth wave, like we were saying, it was very choppy and trending up. And what do we know for this fourth wave over here is it's very choppy, and it's also trending up. And fourth waves, they're typically just an A, B, C bounce. So that could be that, and then we could get one more low in that orange scenario. Otherwise, this could be very similar to all this as well, maybe an A, B, C, something like that. And that could be all of our fourth wave, and we could be heading lower, and this could be a setup for a 1-2 setup to the downside where we can get a third, fourth, and a fifth. Now it's really early to tell just because we have been going sideways. We're still right in the middle of this range. We're not really, I mean, yeah, we've been going up the past couple of days, but if you really look at it, zoom out, does it really look like it's anything serious, or does it just look like we hit this trend line and we're bouncing off it? It just kind of looks like we're bouncing off the trend line, and we could come back up here to retest this before we go lower. If we do break through it, that would be a first confirmation of this white ABC to the upside. And yeah, that's pretty much everything for the analysis part for the longer time frame. If we go to the shorter time frame, there isn't really too much to do just because it's been very similar to the choppy movement on the larger degree time frame. But we'll kind of go to recently what happened. We could have had a possible for the Bitcoin chart, and it seems like we had it for the Ethereum chart as well. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave micro move down for Ethereum, and we also had that for Bitcoin. And so far, this is just seems like a 3 wave move so far. Maybe we get another high, 1, 2, 3. We test these highs up here or this trend line, and then we can get that rejection. That's totally possible to happen as well. But as of right now, we haven't had a 5 wave move up. So far, it just looks like a 3 wave move, which creates a larger 1, 2 setup where we could get a rejection possibly within this area and head lower. It's totally possible we do even form just a larger three wave move, Right now, 1, 2, 3 wave move. We break above the high and then get rejected as well, just for a possible liquidity grab. So in the meantime, the trading day is over for the US stock market. Maybe what we kind of saw yesterday is after the trading day was over, Bitcoin kind of sold off over the last couple of days for that as well, which is kind of what we saw here. And another interesting thing that I also wanted to point out is within our trend line, whenever we have gone after the market is closed, it's not unusual to see a sell-off for Bitcoin right afterwards as well. So maybe in the short term, maybe we kind of trend a little bit lower, maybe we test these lows. I'd say once we kind of break below a swing low, some of these swing lows down here, it could be more apparent that we are either retesting this trend line or we are indeed in that 1, 2 setup to the downside, and we could be getting a third wave down. If we go over to the RSI, same thing for the daily. We're kind of just resetting the RSI. We're slowly working higher and higher, kind of similar to what we did back here. Bitcoin, for the most part, just trended upwards, higher lows, and the RSI was kind of reset. Maybe we do that same thing. Maybe we get another higher high, and then we get that rejection, and all of the RSI is reset for that as well. And if we go over to the 4-hour, we're still within the neutral. There isn't really any divergences forming or any bullish divergences forming. I will say on the 15-minute chart, we did have a bearish divergence right here. We had a high, a low, and a high, and then we get a high, a low, and a lower high. And you can kind of see it's taking effect right now with this little bit of a drop. Now, divergences on the shorter time frame, I wouldn't really take them seriously, but basically all they really show is that one side is just losing strength. And that doesn't mean that they could come back in with a strong repeat of what they did. It just basically shows during this time, they are just starting to lose interest, they're starting to lose strength, and it could be possible that the other way could be in control if, for example, in this one, if a large sell-off were to occur, which on the shorter time frame, 1 minute chart, obviously oversold, doesn't really matter on the 1 minute. If we go over to the liquidity, this is basically what we've been doing the past month, is just liquidity grabs back and forth. We have our largest high here. I'm going to be on the Bitcoin liquidity chart for that just because everything will follow Bitcoin. So it's just going to make it a little bit easier for that. We also did talk about in the earlier video as well. For the Bitcoin liquidity, we switch over to the 7-day for the next week. Our largest zone basically relies within that 72,000 area. Like we were saying in the last video, that 72 to 75,000 range could be very possible that we get a test of there, or at least a test to the 72,000 zone to liquidate some of these shorts and build up more longs over here, where we could retest that lower boundary line as well. On the 30-day, there are now more longs than shorts, so it's possible we do just have a final rally over for some of these larger ones. For example, the largest one over here, which is at the 72,000 range, where we would have that couple $100 million to be liquidated as well. Now, there isn't really too much otherwise than that. other than a possible rally to 72,000. If we do not see that, then we could attack some of these lower boundaries at 68,000 over here before we can retest the 72,000 area. I'm going to go over to the liquidation map just so it's a little bit more simple rather than just point out larger lines. Now for this, we'll put it down to the 0.75. Actually, let's go to 0.50. So here we go. It just makes it a little bit easier to kind of see what we could be possibly going on for Bitcoin. So on the 24-hour, we're within these two zones, like we were saying, that 72 to 75,000 range. That's where majority of short leverage is. If we were to go up that high, we would not only form a higher high, and we would also be liquidating most of the leverage. And as you can see for Ethereum, very similar to what it did back here. It got that high, it went lower, and it went for another high. Could have been a liquidity grab, very similar to this one. Bitcoin actually did form a higher high. So if we refer to that, if we get that 75,000 range, which would be a higher high than the 74, which Bitcoin got rejected at a couple days ago, that would be a higher high. That would be liquidity grabbed, and that would be a possible scenario where we just get that higher high, and now we start to head lower for that other leg down. So we'll keep on watch for that. Obviously, it's super early to tell. It's not like, I mean, it very well could get this liquidity grabbed in the next couple of hours, but more than likely this will be a couple weeks to see play out. Maybe within that time we could fall back down to that 68,000 level before retesting some of those highs. And then once we retest those highs, we have long liquidation that comes back to get liquidated as well. So on the 2 week, we are within these two ranges. The lower boundary is at 68,000. The higher boundary is at 75,000 zone. Maybe we even go a little bit higher just for some of these higher shorts as well. But our larger zone down here would be 62,000. It would not be surprising if we see somewhat of a short-term correction to 68,000. We don't really need one. We could just immediately go for the rest of this week or over the next couple of weeks and just grind up to that 75,000 level to liquidate the shorts. But it wouldn't be unusual to see maybe a retest of a bottom trend line for Ethereum, which would be the 2,000 range, I want to say it is, but basically a retest of that lower trend line we were talking about earlier in the video before we can get, which for Bitcoin would be around this 66 to 68,000 range, before we can get that larger, higher high in for Bitcoin, where we break out of that upper boundary line, which could be overall a fake out for a bull price push up, and then we could fall back down and get that lower leverage as well. We very well could even just go liquidate those lower range at 60,000 as well before heading higher. So on the 1 month, put it to 75, so it's a little, 60, yeah, that's good, 60,000, so it's a little bit more simple. On the monthly chart, we have our larger liquidation around that 50,000 range, which is what we were saying for Bitcoin, could very well have gotten hit or could be getting hit. And on the upper boundary, we have the 80,000 range as well on the larger time frame. So both scenarios work very well for that fourth orange wave or for this ABC in the white wave. And yeah, that's pretty much everything for the leverage and liquidation. If we just stick to the shorter time frame on the 3-day for the rest of this trading week, we could see a test of the mid 70s to possibly that 66 to 68,000, 69,000 essentially, 66 to 69,000 for the leverage as well. So yeah, it's pretty much everything for this video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.